Welcome back to Foregone Trails. Today we're talking steering, steering columns, steering shafts, power steering lines, all things steering. And let's be honest, have I ever steered you wrong? All right, here it is. I'm gonna get this steering wheel mounted into that Jeep by using a little bit more cardboard aided design. So with the Cherokee steering column in the late model, we have this component here and this piece here that would attach originally to the area under the dash on the Cherokee. Since I don't have this in the Jeepster and I need to make as much space as I can under the Jeepster, I've wrestled with how I want to mount this. And the other reason I am keeping this steering column, one, it's going to cost me nothing, so the idea of keeping it cheap, this came with it, it's what I have. Two, I really like the idea of being able to utilize the stock cruise control, hopefully in the future, as well as the integrated wiper controls, and then the plugs and all of that will work already. The key, I have the door pieces, so the key will match the door locks, all of that. So this I think is going to work really well for what I want to do. And so I went ahead and cut out some cardboard, and we'll see how this looks in a little bit. But if you look here, whoop, mounted like so. So what'll end up happening is that I'm going to cut this out of steel, and the two bolts that go here to secure this, and then I'll have this plate, and then this is going to run up and attach to the dash. I'll show you how that all looks here in a little bit, but for now I need to go ahead and get this cut out of steel. I'm going to extend this a little bit longer so I can get it mounted where I want it on the dash, and then overall this should go in pretty nicely. Then we'll have to deal with mounting these two pieces, but for now this is step one. Just transferring the template over so we can get the next part of the process complete.
One eternity later.
We got the brackets kind of in place now. So this top piece, we've got it cut out. It's working, and then we cut a similar piece to match back here that's going to go over and around. The next part that we really need to focus on is figuring out how to get this all attached, get it secure, get it more robust. The issues that we're running into right now are, one, getting the angles right. So if I drop the steering column down enough to where the output lines up with where we need it to on the firewall, the steering wheel sits a little bit higher than we would like. So currently this is where it would sit, and that's as low as we would be able to move it. And so, you know, it's going to sit about like this, and I think that sitting position is a little uncomfortable. And so what we're going to do, I need to cut this top piece off, and we're going to drop this top part about 3 inches, and then I think that will give us enough of a lowering of the steering column here. It'll also level out this part as well, and then we're going to align the angles of this plate and then this plate to match the stock mounting part, and then get it welded and secured over to the firewall. I just wanted to show you guys some of the issues that we're running into when it comes to getting this mounted. It doesn't always work the way you hope the first try, but so we're going to cut that, lower it down, get everything secured, and then we can move on to steering shafts. I'll kind of jump ahead here in a minute and you'll be able to see the finished product of what we did as far as adjustments. Here it is, we got it done. It is now installed, it's ready to go. With the top bracket, we ended up dropping it about another 3 inches, and that gave us the perfect height. So if I hop in here, show you, give it a little old man grunt. But as you look here, I think this is gonna fit just about right. So this is the lowest setting as far as the steering column would go, and then I can raise it up a little bit higher. So that'll give us, I think, a pretty good distance. I compared it to the steering column in my yellow Jeepster, and it's pretty close. It's a little bit closer actually to the windshield, and it sits a little bit lower, I think, than the one in my yellow Jeep, but it's really close, really similar location. You know, if I close the door, it fits pretty nicely. I think it's gonna be pretty comfortable to cruise. Overall, really happy with the placement And so the next piece after this, I'm gonna jump up underneath the hood and I'm gonna go ahead and connect all the steering shafts, get that done. So we'll jump into that and show you what that looks like. All right, with the steering column mounted in place where it's gonna live, I've now put the steering shafts and run them where they're gonna go. And so with that, my concoction here to get this all to work is I have the stock Cherokee steering shaft here with a aftermarket, I think it's a 3/4 by 3/4 double U steering shaft, to then a coupler, to then the stock Cherokee steering shaft down here. I'm also, since this is going to be two pieces connected, going to be utilizing this heim joint here. I'm going to drill a hole, weld, get this nice and supported and mounted to this engine mount so it'll all look and feel like it's supposed to be there. Also, what I've done is to make sure that everything's safe if I am in an accident, is that I went ahead, and so this actually pushes all the way back into collapse. And so I've taken about an extra 6 inches of length here, and I've marked the stock Cherokee shaft here. And so basically what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and cut this stock Cherokee shaft, use this coupler, get that all in place. And then once I have everything attached the way it should, I will be able to then take this heim joint, mark it where I want it to land, drill the hole, get everything in place and secured, and I'll have steering all but buttoned up. So let's go ahead and get this stock shaft pulled off. I got it, haha. Much success. I don't know why that was so difficult to pull off, but we got it. I've got it marked here on this purple line. So let's go ahead and get this cut. So I don't know if you want to see this or not, or if you can really see this. But so the way these will work is basically it has these lock nuts on the outside with a bolt in the middle. And so that bolt in the middle will tighten down on it. And what I'll end up doing is drilling a hole through the stock piece here. So I'll drill a hole just right through here, so then that bolt will have somewhere to go through and hold it securely in place. You'll tighten this piece down, and then you'll tighten that nut to hold that in place. So, but for right now, I just need these out of the way so I can get everything mocked up and in place where I want it to be. I'm going to loosen these up. So you can see now I have all this space in here, just like that. And so this stock piece should slide in theory. Yeah. Yep, there we go. So you can see that'll just kind of come through all the way. And then what I'll end up doing is pulling these out, and then I'll mark it right in that hole. I'll drill a hole through it so then I can tighten this bolt down into it, do the same thing on this side, and then use those nuts to secure it. But for now, this will help get us where we need to go. So you can see with that extra slack there that this now will go ahead and just bolt into place where I want it to go. I just have to get that aligned, which I guess I don't have to worry about the steering column being straight right now. So then this will just slide right back on in theory. I'm freaking missing something. Or these threads are just a little buggered up or something. That'll only go one way, won't it? Just gotta twist it. The splines aren't lined up, it's not gonna go. All right, this is now in place. You can see all this is nice and connected, but without having this dual joint here, this obviously would not work very well moving around like that. And so this is where this heim is going to come into place. We're going to go ahead and figure out where we want that to get mounted, whether that's a little bit further up, a little bit further back. I want to try to keep it as neutral as possible. So I'm thinking about right there should be about right. I'm not sure. Can't quite get that to fit there. So I kind of have to figure out where that's going to fit nicely, because the only problem is this would work okay, but it's a little bit steeper than I want. And what I'm planning to do is I've got another nut like this that I'll show you is ready to go. And so my plan is to weld that actually to the engine mount. And the other piece is that once I get this bolted in, that's going to drop that down a little bit. So I'm trying to get the angles played just about right. And I think something like that is going to work pretty nicely. And so what I need to do now though is need to go ahead and mark where this is going to go. I'm going to need to drill the hole, get that mounted. Yeah, I think I'll have plenty of room. Yeah, right there. So I think it looks like that would clear everything and not be too steep of an angle anywhere particular. I could maybe even angle that over just a hair. And I think that would be just about perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a marker and mark that. So I want the center of that to go about right here. So I'll just kind of draw a line there. I'll get that other nut out and then we'll get a hole drilled. I hope. Okay. I hope you guys are thirsty. So what I've done here, and this is actually white vinegar in here, and you know, these nuts come with this chrome plating on them, whatever that is, and it doesn't weld super well, it seems. And so what I've found is that if I soak these in white vinegar, it takes all that coating off and makes them weld much nicer. So there you go. So soaking them in that vinegar overnight, you can see how one's nice and shiny, the other one's more dull, all that coating's been taken off. So I'm hoping that'll weld a lot nicer than the ones that are coated. So that's the trick for you there. Tech tip. I was gonna say Tuesday, but I don't know when you're watching this. So there's a tech tip for you. I went ahead and soaked those. The coating's off. I'm gonna get this out. I'm gonna mark it, drill the hole, and then I can get this welded up in place. So here we go. Like a glove. So now we can see I can go ahead and get that nut welded in place up here on top. Get this heim joint threaded down where I want it, and that should all kind of play nice. So it's looking good. I'm happy with that. So I think what I'm going to do now, I'm happier with this angle being more off to the side here. So you can see I've got about, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch gap here. So I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and pop out the grinder real quick and shave off part of the threads on this side, so then that will sit flat around the motor mount, but allow me to angle that heim joint to exactly where I want it to be. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Yeah, that's probably a 1/4 of an inch or maybe a little bit more. See, I went ahead and just angled that, ground a little bit off, so I'm hoping when I put it back in that it'll then sit at a slope so that heim joint will align, and then the steering shafts will be exactly where I want them. So let's see if I eyeballed it just right or not. So you can see now all that gap is gone, but then these joints are going to be nice and happy. That heim joint's angled over just enough. So overall, that worked. Now I'll just go ahead and get this welded in on a couple sides so it's not going anywhere, and the steering shafts will be good to go. All right, so here we are. Now that that's welded in place, I'll go ahead and pull this all apart here in a little bit, get this jam nut secured so then this won't move at all. But overall, I mean, that's pretty good. You can see that's well supported. It's no longer moving. I don't think these have any extreme angles on them, so they should turn and cycle and do all the steering things that I need them to do. And so the next step to finishing everything I need for steering are hoses. When it comes to hoses, these are what I use here. I started doing this on my yellow Jeep when I did Hydro Boost brakes on it. I had to run all new hydraulic lines and everything, and a big thing for me has been making sure everything I do is easily serviceable in the field or on the trail or wherever I am. And so in the past, we've actually taken my brother's Jeep out and the hose actually started rubbing one of the belts here. We got a hole in it. Next thing you know, we're stuck on the trail, having trouble getting off, constantly just pouring power steering fluid, trying to make it off the trail. We get into town, they don't have the hose that we need. It was just a big mess. And so what I found as a solution they sell these AN adapters. So these are AN6 fitting adapters here. And for the Cherokee stuff, this is like an M17 and an M18 between the two. I can put some links down there if it's something somebody's interested in, or comment, just let me know. But the way these work, basically they adapt the fitting for the metric fitting that goes into the power box, and then the power reservoir here, the power steering pump, and then it converts it to this AN6 fitting. And so what's nice with these is they're universal. You can get them actually, you know, hydraulically pressed, crimped, whatever. But the ones I have, these are made by Trail Gear, and the way they work is and I'll show you how to do all this. They untwist, the hose is going to screw into this piece here, and so once that's screwed in, you'll have the hose coming out, and then this will go in here, and I'll show you how to do all this. But there we go. So then once you have the hose done, we'll get it attached, we'll bring it over here, we'll show you the length. I'll just show you the whole process. So here we go. With the hose in place, now I know that the inner fender wells run right in here. I want to leave a little bit of room to kind of tuck this away and route it how I want to. And so I'm thinking this will be about right. If I remember, we already pulled all the fender wells off and everything so we could run the steering shaft and get that welded up. But I think this is going to work just about perfect. And so let's get this twisted off. What I'm going to do now, I got that piece removed. With that piece pulled off, I know I want to run this hose somewhere about right here, and then the inner fender well is going to sit right in here. I want this to run about like that, give it a little bit of room for flexion, and I don't want it to run too tight or kink or anything of that nature. And so with that other piece pulled off, I'm thinking about right here will give me plenty of length to kind of move this, get it to fit where I want. And so I'll mark the hose right there. With that marked, I'm going to go ahead and take some tape here so I can make sure to cut a straight line all the way around. It'll also kind of keep this hose from fraying, and so get that wrapped all the way around nice and flush, and rip that off. And so now we'll know where to cut it. I'll go ahead and get the grinder out and we'll get that cut. Looks like, yay boy. So there you go. So now with that tape on there, you can see it didn't really fray too bad or anything of that nature. So now, once you have it cut to length, you'll just take this fitting, and again, it's just going to screw on, and it's reverse thread, so you'll actually twist it to the left to tighten it onto the hose. And what you'll do is twist this all the way down. So once you have that all the way down, you can see, I don't know if you can see, maybe, hopefully, but that rubber hose is butted up right against the end of this fitting. And so once that's there, then you take this other piece like so, and then this will actually screw in traditional right hand thread. So that'll just kind of screw down. So I think another nice thing to note with these two is, you know, if you don't really know what links you need, you can use this to kind of get your hoses made, get all the right links, the shapes, you know, make sure everything's routed the way you want to, and then you could just take them in somewhere and actually have hydraulic lines made, crimped, pressed, all that good stuff. Kind of a nice in that way, and then you could just have spares that you can hold. So, but for me, I've put a few thousand miles on these now. On the yellow Jeep, no issues at all. I'm really happy with them, and then all I have to do is carry a spare length of hose in my toolbox, so if something happens to a line, I can just pull it out, replace it, and be on my way. So I'll get this tightened up, get it installed, and I'll show you what that looks like next. All right, everything is now in place. So you can see this line, everything's crimped or screwed, placed in place. I don't know, whatever the term would be. They're secured. The lines are secured. I need to go actually purchase some more 3/8 line so that I can run it parallel. And then what'll happen is it'll attach to that inner fender well right here. I'll have the return line kind of run parallel. It'll come around and attach right back here, but it's just 3/8 hose. It's really easy. Hose clamps, not a lot to see there. So I'll get that done. But overall, really happy with the progress I've made. I've got the steering column in place. I've got the steering shafts in place. So all the steering is ready to go. It's gonna work. In a future video, in the future, I've got to go ahead and correct the drag link and tie rods. They aren't the quite right length. So I'm gonna go ahead and change all those out with some 1-ton. But for now, steering column in place, steering shafts done. I can steer this thing on its own power. I have the steering hoses all done, but the return line. So overall, this thing would be ready to steer and get and move around all the way you currently see it as it's sitting. So I hope you enjoyed a little bit more about the steering column, the steering shaft, the steering hoses, how I got all this done, why I made those decisions. And until next time, thanks for watching.